Welcome to another Chalk or Not segment. This week we're talking about UFC 315, which goes down in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the Great White North. And obviously I got to support my Toronto teams right now. Obviously the Blue Jays just started their regular season, but the Maple Leafs just kicked off the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we're hoping to get to the third round and continue some success where it just feels like things are going very well, and I'm going to be rocking the Leafs merch throughout the next couple weeks as long as they're in the playoffs and hopefully all the way to the Stanley Cup final. So get used to it. All right, getting back on topic here. Like I said, we got the Chalk or Not segment, which pretty much is me giving you guys a guideline in terms of which chalky spots that you should look to parlay, which ones you should be avoiding, or which ones you could play straight up if they have that much of an advantage over their opponents. And a reminder that the definition of chalk, according to me, is anything that is minus 185 or wider. So in regard to this card that we got coming up, we got 12 fights on this card. 7 of them can be categorized as chalk. So I'll help you navigate these spots and see which spots we can cash on and which ones I'm able to help you avoid as well. Reminder, we got a big week this week in terms of the amount of cards that we got. So PFL MENA and LFA 208 both go down on Friday. I'll have written breakdowns for both of those cards on the Patreon page, but for the LFA 208 card, I'll have a full card breakdown for you guys on Thursday, courtesy of the Legacy Warriors podcast. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Once again, that's going to be on Thursday. And then on Saturday, we have KSW 106, PFL Europe 1, and then obviously culminating with the big UFC 315 card. I'll have a YouTube breakdown for the PFL card on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. And then written content for the KSW card and tracked plays, degenerate plays, parlays, all that good stuff for all of these cards can also be found on the MMA LOTN Patreon page. All right. Without wasting too much more time, we're going to get right into this chalk or not segment. The first of which is going to go down between Navajo Stirling, who comes in at minus 265 as he goes up against Ivan Erslan. Now, Stirling is a city kickboxing product who is a very solid kickboxer, and we saw him go 15 minutes last time around against Tuco Tokos, a matchup that a lot of people, including myself, thought he was going to be able to get the early finish in, but he was unable to do so. But it was impressive to still see him go 15 minutes and be just as effective with his defensive grappling and obviously the striking that we've come to know from him. I expect him to be the faster and slicker striker here against Erslan, and Erslan might be able to land that big shot to change the tide, but if he can't get it done within the first 2 or 3 minutes, I think he's tremendously going to struggle here against Stirling, which is why I don't mind Stirling in this spot, and I think it's going to be him that ends up landing the big shot as Erslan gets a little bit too reckless in the striking realm, leading to Stirling landing that big shot and knocking him out. And I think he is chalk worthy at minus 265. There's nothing Erslan does, even to his grappling game, that worries me too much for Stirling here. So at minus 265, sign me up for Navajo Stirling and put him in the chalk worthy category. Next up, we got Canadian Jasudavicius coming in at minus 270, looking to take on former strawweight champion and former flyweight title challenger Jessica Andrade. And I think this is a perfect stylistic matchup for Jasudavicius to show out, where we've seen Andrade struggle in the past is with fighters with strong top control and strong wrestling. And I think Jasudavicius brings that in spades. Look for her to close the distance here, take advantage of the reckless striking of Andrade, and take advantage of the height and reach and strength advantage she should have in this fight. And I think that will allow her to get this fight to the ground, establish that top control. And I'm just envisioning it in my head. I can already see her establishing a crucifix position, raining down big elbows, and getting a stoppage against Andrade within 2 rounds. So you bet your ass at minus 270, I'm more than happy to put her in the chalk-worthy spot. I wouldn't even mind laying down 2.7 units to win a unit here, but also jumping in on that KO prop, which currently sits around plus 650, as I hope she can get that TKO stoppage as well. So sign me up for Jasudavicius here as a chalk-worthy fighter. All right, next up, we're going to stick with the Canadian theme of things here as we have Mike Malott coming in at minus 190, going up against the ever-aggressive Charles Radtke, who's looking to play spoiler in Malott's home country. Now, Malott I believe, is the technically superior fighter here, from his Muay Thai approach to some of his slick submission game. Even though Radtke is a BJJ black belt himself, I think Malott can implement it a little bit more effectively. Now, with that said, we've seen Malott try to manage his gas tank, obviously in his last fight against Trevin Jaws, where he went to the scorecards for the first time to get his hand raised by decision, where in the past we've seen him kind of gas himself out and put himself into some bad spots where opponents have been able to take advantage of him. I don't think Radtke's going to allow him to manage his gas tank as well as he did in his last fight against Giles, which leads me to believe that there could be some moments that Malott maybe slips up and allows Radtke to get a better position, or even allow him to push him against the cage and wear him down. And that gives me some pause here. I think Malott wins. I think he catches Radtke slipping. I think he eventually either gets a club and sub or a straight up just knockout victory. But it's hard to be completely confident in him, considering the style in which, the aggressive nature of Radtke's fighting style. So that gives me a little bit of pause here, even at minus 190 on Malott. I'd honestly put Malott closer to about minus 140, minus 150. So if that line continues to drop, which we've been seeing over the last few days, maybe I'd be a little bit more intrigued there. The fight doesn't go to decision. That's definitely on my radar. But in terms of picking a chalky spot here on Malott, I'd have to put him in the not chalk-worthy category. Again, very close fight, or at least a very winnable fight for Malott. It just comes down to if he catches Radtke early enough to thwart that aggressive approach, or if we see an un-Radtke-like performance where he's not aggressive, maybe that's something that Malott can capitalize on as well. So I'm going to go with Malott not being chalk-worthy. That's where I'm going to have to go, but I'm still picking him to win this fight. All right, now the chalkiest spot of them all, and this was a fight that was put together on very short notice on fight week after Joel Alvarez was forced to pull out of his matchup. Benoit Saint-Denis, who comes in at minus 1,200, takes on the returning Canadian Kyle Prepolec, who initially went 0-2 in the UFC back in 2019. Since then, he's 4-1 and apparently earned this opportunity as a 35-year-old to get back into the UFC and looking to play the upset role here against Benoit Saint-Denis. But unfortunately for Prepolec, I don't think he's prepared for this type of grappling and aggression that we're likely going to see from Saint-Denis. Prepolec might have an argument to be the technically superior striker just by a smidgen, and that's more so because BSD more so just likes to overwhelm opponents on the feet with a lot of open body kicks, and then eventually try to switch things up into the grappling realm, get the clinch going, wear opponents down, jump on their back, and eventually look for that rear naked choke. And I think he'll be successful in doing so here. With that said, we don't parlay anything worse than, minus 700, minus 800 around these parts. Thus, I'm going to have to put BSD in the not chalk-worthy category. This could be a banana peel moment, right? We saw what happened against Renato Moicano, where, just busting the eye of BSD caused a stoppage to that fight. You don't want to be ripping up your parlay ticket because a minus 1,200 fumbled the bag. It does not make enough of an impact on your parlay to be parlaying something this wide. If you want to parlay as inside the distance, you're probably going to get a much better line on that. Parlay his submission prop, or parlay the fight doesn't go to decision, the under 1.5, but do not be parlaying anything in the 4 digits because of the volatility of mixed martial arts. Again, I think he wins. He should smash Prepolec, but you have to be very, very careful in a sport like mixed martial arts. And at minus 1,200, I do not think BSD is worth the chalk here. Again, I think he wins. Minus 1,200 is just too much for me to get behind. Putting him at 90% indicates that he wins at minus 900, right? You have to add on a bunch more cents there to try to get to minus 1,200. So at minus 900, maybe sure, you could convince me that you could put him into a parlay and it makes enough of a difference. But here at minus 1,200, I'm going to say no bueno. Just take the violence. You get a better line. If you lose, at least you're wagering on a line that was, more accurate than the minus 1,200 in my opinion. But I'm going to put him in the not chalk-worthy category at minus 1,200. All right, next up, we got Natalia Silva coming in at minus 240, going up against former champion Alexa Grasso. Now, Grasso looking to bounce back after losing her title back in September at the hands of Valentina Shevchenko, who will be co-main eventing this card as an underdog, that is. Now, Silva looking to continue her winning streak I believe it's a 12-fight winning streak for her now. She's been absolutely cruising, utilizing a lot of her lateral movement to really pick opponents apart from distance, blitzing the pocket very well, landing her shots before being able to take too much damage in return. And clearly her defensive grappling has improved enough that she can comfortably go out there and implement her game without too much issue. Now, Grasso might be able to match her in terms of the striking here, but I think the constant movement and footwork and, just the frustrating style of Silva is going to cause Grasso to make some mistakes. I also wouldn't be surprised if Grasso looks to get this into the grappling realm to try to show off a little bit of a BJJ advantage, but I don't think that's going to come to fruition. I think Silva implements her style very effectively. I think it's going to take a very strong wrestler to keep Silva on her back and try to keep her from her very movement-heavy style, and I just don't think Grasso has that style here. So, this one might be a little bit unpopular, but we are seeing the steam behind Silva. And, we've seen her around minus 175, pushed all the way up to minus 240 now. And I have to agree with it. So I'm going to go with Silva being chalk-worthy in this fight. Look for her to implement her classic style to outpoint Grasso from distance and win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, we got the King of Rio, Jose Aldo, coming in at minus 210, going up against Ayman Zahabi, who's looking to continue this winning streak that he's on, where he's been able to pull off a few upsets and position himself in a spot like this where he can go up against a legend of the sport and try to add the biggest name to his win column. Unfortunately for him, Aldo has showcased in recent fights that he is still capable of implementing his dangerous Muay Thai style to really break opponents down and either nearly finish them or at least still beat them on the scorecards. The only guys that have given him issues as of late were Merab Dvalishvili and Mario Bautista ever so slightly, who put on one of the most boring performances we've ever seen. But when it's the difference between earning a full paycheck and a half paycheck, I understand why Mario Bautista utilized that style to try to get his hand raised. I think that Zahabi is not capable of that type of grindy performance against Aldo. I think we'll see a lot of aggression here from Aldo to try to work out of those spots. We know his takedown defense is absolutely elite. I think his opponents are now 1-33 in recent fights in terms of trying to take Jose Aldo to the ground. Yeah, 1 of 33 over his last 4 opponents. I don't think Zahabi gets him to the ground. I don't think Zahabi clinches him against the cage. I think Aldo outworks him, eventually touches him up, and clearly wins this fight on the scorecards. And I think he is more than chalk-worthy in this opportunity. I thought he'd be closer to minus 300 if I'm being honest. I'd put him up there pretty high, maybe even as high as minus 400. I know he's getting up there in age, but Zahabi has just barely beaten some of these guys, and stylistically speaking, I think Aldo was the worst matchup for him. So look for Aldo to touch up Zahabi, win this fight on the scorecards, but be more than worthy of being a chalk-worthy spot in this fight. All right. Now we're going to skip over to the main event where welterweight champion Belal Muhammad will be looking to defend his title for the first time as he takes on Aussie Jack Della Maddalena. Now it seems like money is coming in on the Maddalena side as we are getting Muhammad right at the cusp of what I would consider chalk-worthy or just chalky at minus 185. Just a few days ago, Muhammad found himself at minus 225. So to see him now down at minus 185 makes me believe that a lot of people are jumping on that Maddalena side, believing that he can stop the takedowns, stop the control, stop the pressure, and implement his striking advantage, which he should be able to if he can successfully stay away from Muhammad. The issue is Muhammad has a crazy gas tank. This guy has a crazy engine, very good pace, pressure, that even the shortcomings that he has, in whether it's the striking game or the BJJ game, it's just a constant movement, footwork, and, unwillingness to give up that allows him to really break down opponents and get to the game that he needs to get his hand raised. It may not be the most entertaining, and it's probably not the most fan-friendly, but Muhammad has showcased time and time again, now on a 10-fight winning streak, that his style is very effective. And I think he can do it pretty convincingly here against Jack Della Maddalena. I think Maddalena will struggle immensely trying to keep Muhammad at range, just as we saw Gilbert Burns successfully take him down, clearly winning the first 2 rounds of their matchup before he gassed out. But unfortunately for Maddalena, Muhammad does not gas out. And I think he'd be very surprised to see Muhammad keep up that very high level pace, high pressure, and Maddalena I don't think he'll break, but he'll start to give up positions a lot easier, allowing Muhammad to grind this fight out and make it look even more dominating as we get into deeper water here. So I'm going to go Muhammad being chalk-worthy in this spot. I think you can even play him at minus 185 straight up, and I wouldn't even be surprised considering what the public is doing with this fight if Muhammad gets even further down to minus 150. I wasn't expecting this. Going to be honest, when I first researched this fight, I thought we'd continue to see people jump on that Muhammad train, but it seems like they're going with the more entertaining fighter and the guy that's more capable of finishes. But Muhammad, as long as his durability continues to show up as it has been over the last several years, it should hold up for him enough to go out there and grind this fight out and retain that welterweight title. Like I said, chalk-worthy spot here for Belal Muhammad. All right. There you guys go. Full chalk or not for you guys right there. I'll be dropping a Kyle Prepolec and Kyle Prepolec and Benoit Saint-Denis breakdown for you guys in the next day or two. Once they drop the full props for that, I'll be able to dissect it a little bit better. So I'll drop just a segment on that matchup since I was unable to cover it on the full MMA Lawcast breakdown. But I'll also be back tomorrow, aka Wednesday, for the quick picks version of the UFC 315 breakdown. I'll see you guys then. Peace.